Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be reacting to
Why Sweden is falling apart.
In January this year, Sweden experienced more than one bomb explosion per day, a result of surging gang violence.
More than one bomb explosion per day? How come we ain't heard about nothing from the what?
Gang violence in a country previously seen as a utopia for the rest of the world, but not anymore.
Wow.
Sweden now has the highest rate of organized crime killings in Europe. The more worrying part of that statistic is who carries out these crimes. Let me bring your attention to these two
Is it
graphs.
advertised? I never heard of that.
Oh.
The graph on the left shows the percentage share of both immigrants and native Swedes in Sweden, and the right one shows the percentage share of these groups' representation in the crime rates. As you can see, immigrants and the children of immigrants as well as unregistered immigrants commit a much larger share of the crime than native Swedes do. But that's not all. Danish Justice Minister Peter Hummelgaard actually called out Sweden on something even more worrying. Quote, child soldiers are being recruited by gangs to attack each other. Yes, you heard that right. It sounds like a sick joke, but he's right. Look at this graph of the share of gun crime in different age groups. The 15 to 20-year-olds represent a larger and larger share of the crimes. This is happening because the younger you are, the milder your sentence will be in Sweden. So, the gangs take advantage of the youth to carry out the most brutal crimes. And once you start doing these crimes from such an early age, it will quickly become an evil cycle that will be almost impossible to break out of. These kids get drawn into
Yeah, because you haven't formed fully. You think it's okay, you learn that it's okay, and it just becomes okay. As you grow up, it's okay, because that's how you were raised.
this shadow world so easily because of where they live. In Sweden, there's an increasing number of suburbs that are officially classified as especially vulnerable areas, where segregation is rampant and it's bordering on impossible for the police to operate. All of this has happened over the course of just a decade, by the way, and it all started with Fredrik Reinfeldt's statement in 2014, quote, show patience and open your hearts, which he said when asylum seekers started to arrive en masse in Sweden and practically all of Europe from war-torn areas of the Middle East, particularly Syria. This statement ended up making Sweden the go-to place for asylum seekers, and that's why that same year, 81,300 asylum seekers came, but in the following year, that number doubled to 163,000. This was the breaking point though, as it became clear they didn't have the capacity for them all, and failed to integrate them properly, which I will get into a bit later, but since then, Sweden has taken a full 180-degree turn on the matter. I mean, they accepted just 900 refugees in 2023. The change came after the September 2022 elections when a new centre-right coalition came to power, dependent on support from the anti-immigration Sweden Democrats Party. The government's coalition agreement, the Tidö Agreement, called for a radical tightening of immigration policy directly inspired by Danish rules. Now, I'm Danish, and I can attest that immigration has been a hot topic for well over a decade here, and our approach has been pretty much the exact opposite of Sweden's initial approach. Let me explain. We have a very strict immigration policy, with a focus on limiting immigration and enforcing tough integration requirements. The Immigration Act, as it's called in English, has been tightened several times, and there is broad political support for this approach. The main goal of the Danish immigration policy is proper integration so they can become a part of Danish society, contribute to the economy, and understand and accept Danish values.
Right, I think that's the most important thing with immigration. Not that it's bad in itself. I just think it has to be controlled and, integrated. Like, you can't just accept random. Like, that's the issue with the asylum seekers, the refugees, is there isn't really any background check. Like, you just taking everybody because, well, they need help. So you try to help people. You do it out of goodwill, but you don't know exactly who's coming. There could be good people coming that generally are seeking asylum, yes, but there's also the bad apples that are not quite seeking asylum. They're just looking for an opportunity to pull a fast one. And that's why the problem, when you do the immigration like the legal way with the paperwork, they do the background checks, look into your history, your education, your employment, and if you're a good person, they will take you in. And I think that's how it should be, not just take anybody. Oh, I'll get off the boat, I need help. Anybody say I need help, okay, come. That's how it gets Sweden.
Values and norms. In essence, you can come here, but only if you become net positive in these aspects. The way we make this happen is what Sweden wants.
Because a lot of people don't see the long term of it. You just think, oh, they just need help now, but at some point you think they're gonna go back. Like,
right, the idea is they help temporarily and eventually they go back, but they ain't going back.
So adapt into their system. So
that's why there's a saying that they say you don't make your guests too comfortable.
Immigration Playbook. We have a law that I mentioned earlier called the Immigration Act in
right,
English.
like some people can overstay their welcome.
or utlendinglån in Danish. It covers different types of immigrants, but let's focus on the asylum seekers as that's what's important to this story. So if you want asylum here, you first need to get here, as you can't seek asylum if you're not physically in Denmark, and that's already a pretty tough ask. Then once here, you register with the police or the immigration center. After that, you give them all your information, literally everything. Fingerprints to check if you're seeking asylum elsewhere, your age, nationality, religion, and so on. Then you need to explain why you're seeking asylum. Basically, what threats have you been exposed to that forced you to flee your country? Once that's all done, and if you get accepted, you'll get a temporary residence permit, and you'll be moved to a municipality that will help you with.
But what he described to me just seems like a standard practice. I don't feel like this is any stricter than anywhere else in the world should be. So what did Swedes didn't do that? They just taken people don't do nothing checks? Because I feel like this is pretty common sense what he described to me.
Getting a place to live, learning the language, and introducing.
He said, oh, Danish have one of the strictest. I don't feel it's even that strict. I feel like it's appropriate.
You to the job market.
Because strict to me would be just, we don't take them in. That's it.
Furthermore, you need to participate in an integration program and sign a contract. Now, learning the language may sound harsh, especially considering how difficult Danish is to learn, but we provide this for free up to 5 years after arrival to make sure you have the best chance to learn it. So yeah, Sweden is implementing and has already implemented something similar to our approach to immigration, and ideally they will fix what is represented in this statistic.
And it kind of like is for people.
Would you like one? Would you like to not spend your whole day?
Studies show that
will study and put in that kind of effort so they can invite like more brain people.
They set expectations of what you need to do, instead of just accepting anybody. Like, you want to be here, you will have to learn the language. We will test you, or you get shipped away. So I think even just the threat of that, as you said, like some people will just get pushed away. It's too hard for me. I don't want to deal with that. Let me find an easier place to live.
But even after a decade in Sweden, the employment rate for humanitarian migrants only reaches roughly 65 to 70%. Comparing that to the 96.6% employment rate of native Swedes, it's really low and really a problem. The problem is, in the initial years after arrival, the vast majority remain unemployed or living on social assistance, something that obviously strains the public finances a lot. In fact, the estimated cost of refugee reception in 2016, covering housing, welfare, education, etc., was an eye-watering $6 billion, or about 1.35% of the GDP, where housing became an especially acute problem. See, Sweden has not built enough housing for decades, resulting in chronic shortages of affordable homes. The migrant influx amplified this crisis, as municipalities struggled to find accommodation for...
To me, so it's like, if you know you don't have enough housing, why you accept so many people in? That's what I'm confused. Like, you know your housing availability. So why you accept more people than you have housing available? I don't get it.
Refugees on top of existing demand. By 2020, 70% of Swedish local authorities reported a housing shortage, and the average waiting time for a rental apartment was, get this, 9 years.
I think what's common in government is that you don't have really good communication amongst agencies. So different departments, they know what's going on in their department and it's still already chaotic. Now you're having these departments interact with one another. There's going to be delay, miscommunication. The numbers are not going to be up to date. So there can be shortfalls. And sometimes you have, rarely lucky if you have excess. But I can see that being a problem.
In major cities like Stockholm, queues for rent-controlled flats routinely stretch over a decade. This dysfunctional housing market not only caused misery for newcomers and natives alike, it even toppled a government. Yes, in June 2021, Social Democrat Prime Minister Stefan Löfven lost a no-confidence vote triggered by a dispute over easing rent controls, a reform aimed at spurring construction. But the lack of housing is only part of the issue here that really occurred, because suddenly came the rapid emergence of these segregated immigrant enclaves that I mentioned in the intro. Today, Sweden's police have identified 61 vulnerable areas that some media call no-go zones, but that's a mislabeling, because while these neighborhoods are poor, high in crime, and mostly migrants, if a native Swede walks the neighborhood, it's overwhelmingly more safe than the media tries to portray it as. The only ones who really have to be careful here are the police, and sadly, ambulances need police escorts. The major issue with these ghettos is that many newcomers who end up here struggle to learn the language and find their place in Swedish society. I mean, it makes sense, right? They're coming to an area that looks a lot like where they came from.
I think also what is an issue is the police. The police in Europe is not like the police here in the States. I think they're not used to dealing with violent criminals like that. Because here, like, it's just part of the job. At least, like how it, I can't say for Sweden for sure, but like how it was in Lithuania, is the police don't even carry guns. Like, because there isn't like
There's not really training
Yeah, like there isn't training how to handle the
how
situations
to
don't occur.
de-escalate.
Yeah, like, and here in Sweden nobody was well, can't say, I don't know, but if nobody was trained to deal with that, and now all of a sudden you have the same gun violence you have here in the States, you need the appropriate police, because even the people that are police officers, they went into a job to be a police officer not thinking they might get killed on their job. They thought, okay, I'll do a couple of police stops, enforce like the traffic laws. They didn't think, oh, I might get killed. Now
And
the job
also,
evolved.
there's a communication issue too, because not everyone will
Right.
be able to speak
Yeah,
language.
they don't even speak the language, and you don't know. You might knock on the door, somebody
And
just
that
shoot you.
creates already a like it's uncomfortable
Yeah,
situation.
exactly. So it not only the police might need retraining, they might need, some people might quit the force because that's not what they signed up for. And if nobody wants to do the police to sign up for that, well, what do? Send, I guess, send in military. That's the yeah, send in the military.
in culture and language
What Trump is doing, the National Guard, send in some sort of military to deal with them. I don't know.
and the people. So why would you try to understand the Swedish society and cultures when you're in your own little bubble? So yeah, a lot of them end up as criminals from a young age. It's important to note though that most immigrants integrate with our problems. Most contribute positively to the economy and culture. Let's remember, without migration, critical issues such as backlogs and staff shortages in essential public services, particularly within the healthcare system, would be much more acute. See, foreign-born individuals constitute a substantial and indispensable segment of the workforce in vital sectors. For instance, at Sahlgrenska University Hospital in Gothenburg, 35% of doctors, 18% of nurses, 28% of assistant nurses, and 30% of biomedical analysts are foreign-born. In the Stockholm region, 34% of medical doctors are foreign-born, with the most significant increase since 2015 originating
Oh,
from
wow.
non-European countries. Nationally, nearly 30% of workers in elderly care are foreign-born, with a considerable number having a refugee background. Beyond healthcare, foreign-born
So they are, some of them are contributing. So
Yeah,
that's
they're holding
good.
a lot of positions.
That's good. Yeah, but
So it shows that their system is working.
like it just, they did accept good people and they help good people out, which was the goal.
Yeah.
I guess they just didn't filter enough of bad people out.
Mhm. Which is
individuals
always going to happen.
Right. So now question is, how do you deal with them?
also make up significant percentages of other essential workers, including 60% of all cleaners, 51% of bus and tram drivers, 49% of taxi drivers, 68% of maids and nannies, and 42% of restaurant and kitchen assistants.
Just honestly kind of feels like a similar situation here in the States. Maybe not necessarily the refugees, but overall like illegal immigrants that just come because there's like a gang members that come in, but there's also a lot of good people that come in. So it seems like a similar situation.
So yeah, Sweden took the risk and really did open their hearts to immigrants, but it's become increasingly clear in the past years that they need to be selective. A society can't function if hundreds of thousands come and don't sustain themselves. You can have an open heart and you can show kindness, but you can't help everyone, and unfortunately some will take advantage of your kindness. But that's it. I just quickly want to mention that my Map Studio store, where
Cool.
You
Interesting.
can see the comments.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think the title feeling falling apart is a little too dramatic. Don't think they're falling apart, but they are going through something right now. Props for facing this topic openly. As a Swede, I have no problem acknowledging that Denmark had the right idea, which says something. Is that like some shots fired at them, which says something? Wow, Denmark had the right idea for once. Okay. I studied master in psychology in Sweden as an EU student. Yes, Sweden, and especially Umeå, was very good and welcome. I studied free as an EU student. I learned. Okay, we could use some commas in this. Okay, yeah, I'm not reading
You
that.
suffered through that too at one point.
I am a second generation immigrant, and my entire family has integrated to living in Sweden. We all know the language, pay taxes, work hard, and vote, etc. And we worked hard to get there, so we could contribute to it.
I feel like a lot of these type of comments is to fight. Oh, that foreigners are not bad.
Yeah, I think no, like for a foreigner in itself is not bad. It's there needs to be a filtering system. What kind of foreigners to take in, because some people just are xenophobic to a point where, oh, foreigners are bad, period, which is not good. But I don't think it's good what Sweden did to just, oh, let's take anybody. I don't think that's good either. I think there has to be like that filter, background checks, accepting, certain type of people and not other types of people.
Guys, of course, let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord. And as always, share as much kindness as possible.